The racist employee thought he could racially profile a customer, but he was shocked to see that it was actually his boss. FreshMart's fluorescent lights hummed over aisles stocked with organic kale and artisanal pasta. The store prided itself on curating excellence, a slogan plastered beside the entrance. But today, the air carried tension. A white employee, Carl, adjusted his name tag, assistant manager, and frowned at the black man browsing cereal. Derrick Hayes moved deliberately, his worn sneakers silent on the tile. His navy hoodie and frayed jeans drew Carl's gaze. To Carl, Derrick looked out of place in the upscale store, a contrast to the yoga pants-clad regulars. But Derrick's posture was steady, his grip firm on a reusable bag. He paused to compare oatmeal prices, unaware, or perhaps uncaring, of Carl's scrutiny. Carl lingered, arms crossed, as Derrick selected a jar of almond butter. Probably shoplifting, Carl thought, tailing him. Derrick's calm demeanor, nodding at a child in the next aisle, only deepened Carl's suspicion. The stage was set, a man judged by his appearance, and a man ready to shatter the script. Derrick paused at the dairy aisle, comparing yogurt brands, when Carl sidled up beside him. "Need help finding something, sir?" Carl drawled, his tone dripping with faux politeness. The word "sir" hung in the air like a challenge. Carl lingered, arms crossed, as Derrick selected a carton. "You sure you can afford that organic stuff?" he asked, nodding at the almond milk in Derrick's cart. His smirk widened when Derrick said nothing, only adding a bag of quinoa to his basket. Nearby, a stock clerk, Lisa, paused to watch, her eyes flicking between them. At the spice aisle, Carl leaned against a shelf, accidentally jostling Derrick's elbow. "Careful," he said, though Derrick had been stationary. "Wouldn't want you pocketing anything." Derrick's jaw tightened, a flicker of irritation, but he simply stepped aside, murmuring, "Excuse me." When Carl trailed him to the checkout, Derrick unloaded his groceries methodically, meeting the cashier's gaze with a warm smile. "Busy day?" he asked, making small talk. The cashier, a young woman named Priya, nodded nervously, avoiding Carl's glower. Carl leaned on the conveyor belt. "You folks usually shop here?" he asked Derrick, feigning casual interest. Derrick handed Priya his payment card. "I'm here for the same reason as anyone else," he said evenly. "Groceries." Carl's laugh was sharp. "Right. Just making sure you're authorized to use that card." Derrick's fingers stilled briefly on the receipt, but he only thanked Priya and wheeled his cart toward the exit, Carl's gaze burning into his back. At the frozen aisle, Carl blocked Derrick's path, arms spread wide. "You sure you don't need help carrying all this?" He gestured to Derrick's cart, organic veggies, gluten-free snacks, a bottle of champagne. His laugh echoed. "Didn't peg you for a gourmet guy." Derrick stepped aside, but Carl followed. "Heard you folks prefer discount stores." He emphasized folks like a slur. Nearby, Lisa dropped a jar of pickles. It shattered, but no one moved to help. Carl leaned in, voice louder now. "You know, we've got a policy against loitering." Derrick's grip tightened on his cart. "And you," Carl plucked the champagne from the basket. "This is for employees only." "Put it back," Derrick said quietly. Carl smirked. "Or what? You'll report me." He tossed the bottle into a neighboring cart, then leaned closer, breath hot. "You think anyone here's gonna take your word over mine?" Derrick's throat burned. He glanced at the store's security cameras, a flicker of hope, but Carl noticed. "Oh, go ahead," he sneered. "Make a scene. But we both know how that ends." Derrick's vision blurred. He thought of his office upstairs, the nameplate on his desk. Derrick Hayes, Vice President of Operations. But here, in this aisle, he was just another black man in a hoodie. Carl snatched a bag of chips from Derrick's cart. "You even know what quinoa is?" he jeered, crunching the bag loudly. "Or are you just here to—" Derrick's phone buzzed, a text from his assistant. "Meeting in 10? He silenced it, nails digging into his palm. One word, and Carl would be fired. But not yet. Not like this. At the store's exit, Carl blocked Derrick's path, arms spread wide. "Hold on, buddy," he barked, loud enough for nearby shoppers to glance over. Gotta check your receipt. Policy. He smirked, tapping a sign that read all bags subject to inspection. Derrick's receipts were already tucked in his bag, standard practice for corporate audits. But Carl snatched his grocery bags, spilling quinoa and almond butter onto the floor. Oops, he sneered. Clumsy me. Derrick's vision blurred. He could hear whispers now. Ridiculous. Why's he harassing him? But Carl leaned closer, voice low. You people always playing the victim. Bet you're gonna cry racism next. A hot surge of anger flooded Derrick's chest. He clenched his fists, nails biting into his palms. Not here. Not like this. Carl held up Derrick's champagne, feigning surprise. Fancy drink for a black man? Derrick interrupted, voice steel. The lobby fell silent. Carl froze, smirk slipping. Derrick's phone buzzed again. Meeting in 2 minutes. He stepped forward, eyes locked on Carl. You've got 2 seconds to move. Carl laughed. Uneasy. Or what? You'll. Now. The word cracked like a whip. Carl hesitated, then stepped aside, just as a suited figure emerged from the office hallway. Derrick froze, then slowly pivoted. The lobby lights glinted off his glasses as he faced Carl. The suited figure from the hallway, a district manager, paused, sensing the tension. Carl, Derrick said, voice steady, you've made 3 critical mistakes today. He gestured to the spilled groceries. First, you harassed a customer over organic quinoa. A shopper gasped. Second, you mocked a corporate VP's personal shopper. Carl paled. Third, Derrick stepped closer, you've ignored every diversity training seminar we've mandated. The district manager straightened. Mr. Hayes. Carl's smirk collapsed. Lisa clapped a hand over her mouth. Priya, the cashier, whispered, The Derrick Hayes? Derrick ignored them, eyes locked on Carl. You see a black man in a hoodie and assume incompetence. But I see a store that's failed its employees and customers. He plucked his corporate ID from his pocket, a sleek black card with FreshMart embossed in gold. Shall we discuss your performance? Assistant manager. Carl stumbled back, knocking into a display of organic granola bars. The room held its breath. The district manager, Rachel Nguyen, stepped forward, her heels clicking sharply. She glanced at Derrick's corporate ID, then at Carl. Mr. Hayes, she said, her tone shifting from confusion to alarm. Is there an issue here? Derrick didn't look at her. His gaze remained locked on Carl, who stood frozen, face ashen. Carl, Derrick said, voice cutting through the silence. You've been harassing a customer. Me. He tapped the ID, Vice President of Operations, now visible to everyone, and violating every protocol we've trained you on. Carl's mouth opened and closed. You, hoodie, he sputtered, gesturing at Derrick's attire. Lisa, the stock clerk, inhaled sharply. Priya, the cashier, covered her mouth. Rachel's eyes widened. This is the VP, she muttered, shooting Carl a look of disdain. The one who revamped the entire diversity initiative last quarter? Derrick stepped closer to Carl, who shrank back. You see a black man in a grocery store and assume he's a threat. But I own this store. I employ you. He paused, letting the words sink in. And right now, you're failing your job. Carl's bravado crumbled. Sir, Save it, Derrick said, raising a hand. You've had years to learn respect. Today, you proved you haven't. Lisa edged forward, clutching her clipboard. Mr. Hayes, I saw everything. He's been following you since produce. Derrick nodded. Thank you, Lisa. To Carl, you've mocked my choices, questioned my right to be here, and insulted my dignity. All because of a hoodie. Rachel stepped beside Derrick, her posture rigid. Carl Whitaker, you're suspended pending investigation. She pulled out her phone. Security will escort you out. Carl's face flushed. You're making a mistake, he shouted as 2 guards approached. This is bullshit. Derrick's expression never wavered. No, Carl. This is what happens when you underestimate people. As Carl was led away, Derrick turned to the crowd. To everyone who stood by, thank you. And to those who didn't. He let the question hang, a quiet rebuke. The district manager touched his arm. Shall we discuss next steps, Mr. Hayes? Derrick glanced at his spilled groceries, now being cleaned by a remorseful Priya. Yes. Starting with a staff meeting. Now. Derrick stood at the front of the store, flanked by Rachel and a now silent staff. His voice carried, calm but unyielding. Carl's behavior today wasn't just unprofessional, it was a betrayal of what this company stands for. He held up the corporate ID, its gold lettering catching the light. I didn't build FreshMart to cater to privilege. I built it to serve people. All people. He turned to Carl, whose face burned crimson. You mocked my groceries, questioned my right to be here, and insulted my dignity, all because of a hoodie. That's not just ignorance. It's cowardice. Rachel stepped forward, clutching a tablet. Carl Whitaker, effective immediately, you're terminated for violating the anti-discrimination policy. Security will escort you to clear your locker. Carl lunged forward, voice cracking. You're making a mistake. I have a family. Derrick raised a hand, silencing him. You had years to learn respect. Instead, you chose cruelty. He nodded to the guards, who gripped Carl's arms. Go! Carl's bravado shattered. Tears streamed down his face as he was marched past the checkout aisles, past Lisa and Priya, who stared daggers. I'm sorry, he choked, but Derrick didn't flinch. Lisa approached Derrick, trembling. I should have spoken up sooner. I'm sorry. Derrick softened. Thank you for stepping forward now. That's how change begins. As Carl disappeared through the doors, Derrick addressed the crowd. FreshMart isn't about organic kale or fancy labels. It's about people. Today, one man forgot that. Let this remind us all, respect isn't optional. It's the price of entry. He knelt to retrieve his spilled groceries, now restocked by Priya. Now, he said, smiling at her, let's get back to work. 3 months later, FreshMart buzzed with a new energy. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating a revamped community corner, where flyers for local Black-owned businesses hung beside diversity workshop schedules. Derrick, now a familiar face in his signature hoodie, mentored a group of interns at the deli counter. FreshMart's strength, he told them, isn't our kale, it's our people. Nearby, Lisa, newly promoted to assistant manager, trained cashiers on de-escalation techniques. Her first policy? Assume nothing about a customer. The store's Curating Excellence slogan had been replaced with Everyone Belongs Here. Shoppers of all backgrounds lingered, chatting with staff. Priya, now a team leader, joked with a customer about the quinoa craze, her confidence unshakable. Word of Carl's firing spread. Competitors adopted FreshMart's anti-bias training modules. Local news dubbed the store a blueprint for corporate accountability. Derrick paused by the entrance, sipping coffee from a mug gifted by the staff. Thank you for seeing us. He smiled, recalling Carl's humiliation. Justice had been served, but the real victory was the culture shift. Employees now called out disrespect, customers voiced trust, and the store thrived. As he left, a teen in a hoodie entered, scanning the aisles. Derrick nodded at the new security guard, a black officer with a warm smile. Welcome to FreshMart, the guard said, offering a cart. Need help finding anything? The teen grinned. Nah, I'm good. Derrick walked into the sunset, the store's new slogan glowing behind him. Respect wasn't a policy. It was a promise. Have you ever experienced a moment where someone unfairly judged you based on appearance? Share your experience in the comments. If you enjoyed this and want more content on inspiring Black stories channel like this, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching, and remember, real courage is not fearing the consequences, but prioritizing justice over comfort.